I have always loved going to the movies, and this year is where it really took off when my friends finally convinced me to buy the AMC Stubs A-list. 3 movies a week, with a movie theater 10 minutes away from my house, it was a no-brainer. I have nearly maxed out that pass every week since I got it, and also considering how many good movies have showed up on streaming alone, I have watched 103 movies last year. So while some people follow me on Letterboxd and have seen this list already, I thought, why not make a cool video about it, going over and ranking every movie I watched last year and reviewing them in one sentence. So how the video is basically going to be formatted, up at the top over here is going to be the placement of the movie, then the poster, then down below is going to be the movie title, and then either up here or down here, I haven't decided just yet, I will put the rating of the movie. I never rate a movie a 0 out of 10, because at the very least, if you tried to make a movie, you get my respect of a 1. But believe me, there are some 1s this year. So let's begin the countdown. Greedy Company selling a terrible film. This is the worst movie I've ever seen in theaters. Greedy Company selling a solid film but using filthy tactics to do it. The worst movie I've ever seen an A-list actors star in. This isn't a movie. This is an unedited TV show. If you give me 0 effort, I give you 0 respect. A terrible and boring horror movie with a cool Indian skin. A terrible and boring horror film, but at least there was 1 or 2 good jump scares. How do you make a dumb shark movie boring? Incredibly boring, but at least the ending was cool. It's 1/3 a great intense film about loneliness, and 2/3 the most boring movie I've ever seen. It was a fine character drama, but it felt 2 hours too long, and it was only an hour and a half. Shitty horror movie, but at least this one wasn't boring. The first 20 minutes were interesting, and the rest disappointed. It was actually a great film, but had one of the most laughable endings of all time. Comedy for people over the age of 50. I'm 23. A mid-action movie, but the Indian skin was a little bit cooler this time. Somehow missed this in the original recording, but it's a movie with 3 perspectives where only one perspective is actually interesting. Very pretty, but terrible direction. Way too many characters for me to care about any of them. It was better than the first Nun, but the first Nun is also one of the worst movies of all time, so the bar wasn't that high to clear. An interesting concept, but a terrible on-the-nose commentary about cancel culture that had me rolling my eyes through the back half of the movie. Rogue One if it was boring and not memorable. A silent film with dinosaurs should have never been on the table for a movie. A very great start, but the most average movie of all time after that. A very basic detective mystery, but at least the detective is very charismatic. Mark Hamill's always fun, but Bert Kreischer isn't. So I somehow did this twice, but this movie is an interesting take on a story we've all heard before. The problem is it's a story we've all heard before. It's been beaten to death. I didn't think this one was as bad as others, but that ending is still shit. The only interesting thing about this movie is that it wasn't the start to the end. Instead, it was just a small part. A movie that bored me for the first little bit, but that ending was crazy. R.I.P. Kang. Gone and forgotten. R.I.P. DCEU. This one was mid, though. R.I.P. DCEU. This one was slightly less mid, though. Ari Aster has made 3 movies, 2 of which are in my top 25 movies of all time. This isn't one of them. Fun little kids movie. Not too deep, but I did enjoy Keegan Peele's Parrot. Fun little gore fest, but there really wasn't enough Cocaine Bear in a Cocaine Bear movie. John Wick at home with a less interesting John Wick. I'm glad Halle Bailey is getting the recognition she deserves, but corporate Disney BS isn't the way to go. Beautifully animated, meh. The racism was crazy, though. It was a movie made 10 years too early, but it's the best thing I've ever seen Pete Davidson in. Goofy little movie that I kind of forgot everything about, except for the coffee table aliens. Solid jumping off point for horror for children, but other than that, it's just decent. It's exactly what you expected from it. No one expected it to be the best thing ever. It's solid, but the concept is really creepy. Really fun action, but relatively forgettable considering there is 0 dialogue in this movie. Great setup. I even like the ending, but I just don't think about it often anymore. Very interesting with its wish concept, But other than that, plot-wise and music-wise, it's very basic. Very wholesome. I expected more out of this, but what I got was still good. Pretty funny, but the ending twist was kinda lame. The worst Ghibli film I've seen to date is still good. Go figure. It's a fun Transformers movie with a great final battle, but other than that, it's just a Transformers movie. It was better than Crystal Skull. Some phenomenal action shots, but a horrible relationship plot. Kamala carries. A surprisingly solid indie film that no one has ever seen. Even though I have very little connection to the Mario games, I still had a lot of fun with this one. Terrible pacing, but an amazing ending. A very basic story, but the climax was so good it made me cry in theaters. It's dumb fun. R.I.P. DCEU. At least this one was good and the family was great. Shockingly great sound design to unnerve you good. Shockingly great sound design to unnerve you good. Shockingly great brutal kills. It's another Scream movie. AK, it's good. A solid comedy, and I enjoyed the Office style directing. I adore the practical effects with the animatronics. Otherwise, the story was passable. Even Your Name at Home is still great. A solid docufilm. I enjoyed the Office style directing. Solid docufilm. The corporate jerking off was crazy though. R.I.P. DCEU. I'm one of the few people that really like this one. I love me a good disaster flick. The second best court scenes in movies this year. I'm glad no one else was in my row or else they'd complain about how much I was dancing in my seat in the theater. Insanely, amazingly timed AI horror film. This shit hit hard in January. The most polarizing film of the year for me because I don't know which side I was rooting for. A hilarious film that leans into its absurdity. It really felt like they gave some nerds $100 million to make a film about their best D&D campaign, and it totally worked. Insanely charming film, but not to the same level as the original. Great boxing film, and it's my favorite of the Creed trilogy. The best use of the unfriended style of filmmaking I've seen to date, and I absolutely loved it. It felt like a Disney Renaissance piece, and I do not say that lightly. Possibly the best scripted dialogue of the year. Such an amazing, mature film. The biggest shock of the year for me. I did not expect a boxing film to almost make me cry. A beautifully shot, insanely dark comedy. A movie that will probably rise on rewatch. This is a movie I can feel people talking about for years to come, and the fact it's only 20 shows how amazing this year was. The best Hunger Games film to date, and the pacing didn't bother me like it did to many others. They actually made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles actually teenagers and did it in the new American animation style. Of course it was great. Insanely powerful film about how much change one person can make. It's a Mission Impossible movie. It was gonna go crazy no matter what. The funniest film of the year, and surprisingly impactful with the family drama. This movie made you root for terrorists. The best Saw film to date, and possibly the best gore movie of all time. It was very daring to make a Barbie movie not aimed toward children, but it paid off in every single way possible. A heartbreaking film that deserved every single minute of its 3.5-hour runtime. An amazing corporate jack-off film that somehow made me think Nike and Michael Jordan were underdogs. It's the best Godzilla movie ever, and I saw it twice in theaters and it was better the second time around. Possibly the best action movie of all time if you're grading purely on the action. An insanely wholesome action adventure that put a smile on my face through its entire runtime. A gem of a film with amazing heart, dialogue, comedy, and characters. They continued one of the best rom-com stories of all time in a movie. Of course it was going to be high on the list. The fact a movie like this can still come out today proves that superhero movies can continue being great, and I'm very excited to see what the future holds. My new favorite horror movie of all time, and it's by far the best ending of any horror movie of all time. If this doesn't win Best Picture, we riot. My favorite film of all time got a sequel that lived up to the expectations of the first, and if it wasn't for a cliffhanger, this could possibly clear for Best Movie of all time. So that's my list. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was an interesting ranking. Let me know what your top movies of the year were. Let me know what your least favorite movies of the year were. And have a good one. Peace.